All right. Well, do you have questions for each other or some thoughts?
I had a question for Jane.
Okay.
Jane, I grew up in Boston and Boston, and I used to sail out to Paddocks Island. I was a sea explorer.
Yeah.
And when I saw the images of your work, I thought they were glass
Huh.
because they look so transparent.
Yes.
And there's a lot of
The light comes
variation.
through the handmade paper. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that paper seems to have different transparency.
Yes, depending on what plant waste you're using, you can make it very transparent. And it's also the Japanese hand paper making technique that I use. I had a PowerPoint made that showed some of the process, but we weren't able to do that. We just had to talk. So, the process itself is interesting. And, it was a great place to put it because it was in front of a glass window at the visitor center. And the Boston Harbor Islands is a great place to visit if you are in Boston. I used to live on the East Coast in New York State, and my son lives in Boston, so I'm very familiar with Boston and visit there a lot and like to do art projects there. I've also been an artist in residence at the Mass Audubon Society. They have a American bird art museum that's very near Boston.
Wow.
So it's something else to look up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep my accent fresh.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a Boston accent, as you can tell. I'm originally from Alabama, so I have the Southern accent still. But I've lived all over the world. But
Thank you.
birds have always been, a part of my work. And, wherever I go, I do a lot of bird watching and learn about the local birds. And Paddocks Island is, one of the larger islands in the Boston Harbor, and does have a lot of shore birds, wading birds, as well as sometimes migratory birds. And it's all of the islands are used as bird nesting sites. So.
Wow.
So, I was the first artist in residence, and this very short residency I did in August of 2016 was sort of a pilot program to see if they, thought it would be beneficial, I guess, to continue having artists. And I think they are, more and more national parks are starting to have artists in residence. And it was a great experience. I've been an artist in residence at other national parks. You do have restrictions on, what you can use. I thought it was really interesting, the person who talked about feathers and, not picking up feathers because you don't know whether it was an endangered bird or whatever feather that you found. Mm-hmm. That was also very interesting. Okay, any other questions or comments? No.
Linda had her hand up.
Oh, I have a question. This is for Lorna about ostrich farming. And so I heard about it a lot about 20 years ago in like Sonoma County, and now I don't hear anything about it. So I was just wondering if what she was saying about her relatives, how they, it was too difficult to farm them. And I did hear people saying, oh no, now we're going to have these giant birds and it's going to be a new source of meat, but you know, it's going to be sort of terrible because you know, it's a bird. And so I don't know, I was going to ask Lorna what the status is in the United States of ostrich farming and if it is successful or not successful.
Well, ostrich farming is successful. The large scale farms do better. I think the smaller farmers like my cousin or people up in Sonoma have given up on it because ostrich meat just didn't take off. And the ostrich egg, which is huge and difficult to crack, would feed an army, you know, an omelet. So they didn't have the ability to harvest the number of feathers necessary to satisfy the fashion industry, which is really, I think, the main commodity that the ostrich is used for, along with the skin, which is very popular for handbags. But most of it's large-scale commercial things, not small-scale, small farmers. They are ornery creatures.
Yeah.
Okay, Vicky has her hand up.
Thank you.
Oh, you're muted.
Just a factoid, at the turn of the century, Oakland, California, at Fruitvale, had the largest amount of ostriches. They had the biggest ostriches farms in Oakland, California, and all because of hats.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Well, they raised them only for hats.
Wow.
That's just a factoid of an industry. It was at Fruitvale.
Interesting.
So what, for ostriches, I mean, how does taking their feathers out impact them since they don't fly?
Well, they can fly a little bit, and they love to flap their wings. They have a very amusing mating dance that's well worth looking up on YouTube if you're interested. They need their feathers also to nest for their eggs and that type of thing. I think they'd be unhappy plucked. I'm not sure that they might not be selectively plucked. But I think animals may be killed for feathers and then used in other ways also.
I see that Sarah has rejoined us. Christina, if she wanted to speak.
Well, I had a comment, Dianne. You did the wonderful condor, and I was very interested in the status of lead bullets in California, whether they're still being sold or not. And so some friends told me about a local gun shop, which I happened to gain entry into this very interesting world. And I asked about lead bullets, and they said, well, they actually still are sold in California. You're just not supposed to hunt with them. But I guess they're used for other things like, you know, target shooting or whatever, right? So I was disappointed to hear that they are still available. And it's my understanding that they actually, the folks who are working very hard to keep condors going, or they trap them every year and do lead poisoning blood tests. And then they treat them for lead poisoning if they do have contracted it. But that must be very stressful for the birds to be being trapped and released, you know.
It's a major program that this Ventana Wildlife Society is one of the main places where condors are released from, and there's a center there. They're actually also cared for at the Oakland Zoo when they find one that has lead poisoning. But it's Ventana actually even gives away non-lead bullets to hunters, but still hunters tend to prefer using lead for some, I don't understand. Frankly, I don't understand hunting, but
it's my understanding they're cheap. They're cheaper.
Well, yeah, but Ventana is giving them away, so
Oh,
that
right.
you don't get cheaper than free. It's, I guess they fly better, they shoot better, they kill better. And there's a lot just in the environment from years and years of condors picking up not only lead and bullets, they'll pick up any shiny object and take it back to the nest and feed their young. And recently, one of the young was found that it didn't survive, and a lot of things like that happen. That I mean, the survival rate of wild birds is pretty low anyway. Generally, about 30% are lucky to make it for a couple of years, even after they hatch and fledge. But when there's poison and other problems in the environment, it makes it even more difficult for species. So the Ventana does a week or a monthly update chat, and they tell you almost all of the free-flying birds now are tagged. I think there are a couple of juveniles out there that hatched in the wild that haven't been captured yet and tagged. But they all have stories, and they all, I kind of used to see, flocks of birds flying over and just think birds are just, kind of a collective entity. But when you start watching the nest cams, you realize each bird is an individual, and it has a life, and it has a story, and it loves its life as much as we love ours. So it is pretty interesting it's kind of heart-wrenching sometimes too. I watch an osprey camera, and for 7 years now, and the first 5 years were great. We had most of the eggs hatched and fledged, and we had a few tragedies, but the last couple of years have been pretty rough, partly because of the really bad spring weather we had in California, and so many tribulations that these creatures go through to live in the wild. So yeah.
How do you watch the ospreys? How do you connect?
That's a camera put on by Golden Gate. Well, used to be Golden Gate Audubon, now it's Golden Gate Avian Society. It's sfbayospreys.org. And right now, it's not nesting season. Our male stays in the area, but and occasionally you'll see him off hanging around the area in the distance. But the females will come back in late February probably, and nesting season starts about then. But the cameras are on year round. So there's a whole community of people that have kind of coalesced around the bird cameras as well. So, okay.
One of the 5 top impactors of bird life is cats. And so I have 2 outdoor cats, and one, Nixie, can catch hummingbirds. And so I got a cat bib for her, and it's a little neoprene bib that has this like psychedelic 1970s pattern on it, and it goes over her collar. And when she's got her cat bib on, she can't coordinate to kill birds. And she looks really hip too. Some of my neighbors think that I'm cruel, having the cat bib. They feel sorry for her, but it's really effective for the bird population.
That's great.
So we said it was going to be an hour and a half, and we're coming up. We have some last questions. If you want to continue, we can. Otherwise, we'll stop in another couple of minutes.
It's coming up on an hour.
Okay.
There must be more to talk about.
I'll just mention, Linda, I was struck when I saw your piece, how it looked to me like Native American art.
Oh,
And I don't know, did you see it in that way at all, or?
no,
Oh, okay.
not at all.
Yeah, yeah.
That was such a beautiful way for people to honor the birds by, not picking up and holding the feathers, which might have been illegal, but, putting them in a place where they would be recognized and viewed, and just really in such a beautiful display. That was really.
Yeah, and I don't know who does it. I mean, it's in this redwood tree loop that isn't that far from me, and I don't go there enough, but yeah, it'd be interesting to find out if it's a group of people or just one person. But yeah, it was sort of it was really beautiful to find.
Did you add a feather?
No, because we didn't find any. But it makes me think about, I used to go with a friend and we would go to this creek and collect rocks to bring back to our garden so we could have rocks around everything. And, over the years, we've picked up, skeletons of different things. So, little raccoons or mice or something like that. So, without thinking about it, and now I think just having more awareness, all those little bones are food for other critters that chew on them all the time, the rodents and stuff. And yeah, now I'm trying to be more aware of just what I do and what I don't do. I mean, I'm pretty much a painter. And I don't necessarily work with birds at all, except I like watching birds. And when I walk, I always have binoculars to look. But yeah, I just never know what's going to be out there in the woods. It's really fun to be sort of open to finding things. And
Victoria?
I was going to, I'm working on a piece right now about the warblers. And I know we've been reading a lot about in Chicago, the nighttime and the birds crashing into the buildings and how many we're losing. And I spend a lot of time on the East Coast working. And I have a wonderful client who's quite a bird aficionado. And we were having a conversation about warblers. This is possibly a year ago. And when I left her apartment in New York, laying on the street by a mailbox was a dead warbler. And it affected me greatly. We had just been having the conversation. And so a big part of what I'm looking at and painting are dead birds, which in our history are a sign of renewal, and painted in many paintings as a positive sign. Iris Applebrook, who we just lost, a wonderful artist, often painted dead birds. And so I do paint dead birds often, but as for me as a hope for, that we're all paying attention to what's going on. But in terms of light and birds and their flight patterns and how many we're losing, and such an effect of not just environmental climate change, but of building and human nature. So when we talk about feathers and going out and collecting them and not collecting them, and yeah, there's so many aspects of respect of birds that we're trying to pay attention to right now in our communities. And so everything everyone has said tonight resonates with some where we're all trying to respect these gatekeepers that we live amongst and take care of them. And I also love what Ventana, I live in San Francisco, but I work on both coasts. I love what the Ventana Condor, what they're doing for the condors. It's amazing. And during the fires, how they lost some of their birds and how they, then they had babies, and I found it incredible, the condor cam. So I just also, I think it's incredible what human beings are trying to do for the birds. And I'm honored to be part of this group and part of this show, because it's actually a very important part of my life, and paying attention to what's going on. So yeah, everybody, it's wonderful just to hear what everyone's doing.
It's really interesting. I heard a bird song the other day when I was out on my deck that I've never ever heard before. And it was so, I was really struck by how big an impression it made on me. That just to hear this completely new song that was really very simple but very, very strong. It's like, who is that?
Do you know what the bird was?
No, I have no idea. I don't have that app or whatever that you can.
Right, the Merlin app. I'm dependent on it.
Yeah. But I remember, right, I think it was the first day of the COVID shutdown a few years back. A hermit thrush flew directly over my house and sang its song, and it has never, ever, ever, ever been in my area. Usually they're
Where
out
are you?
in the woods somewhere. I'm in Oakland, right off of
Okay.
a road.
Yeah.
I mean, that felt like some kind of gift, to have the hermit thrush right above my house. So yeah.
Well, I'm very lucky to be on both coasts quite a bit, and the story about that Therese said about the red-breasted grosbeak. It's so funny because I was walking with a friend in the Hudson Valley. I'd never seen one in person, and I started screaming, "Oh my gosh!" Oh my! And I made her stop. They're incredible to see in person and real. They're just such a vibrant, very different than the red of a woodpecker. Also amazing to see. Yeah, I love that you said that. They're amazing birds. Beautiful. All birds are.
The Academy of Sciences in Golden Gate Park, which is a LEED platinum building, had a big problem with bird death on the front window. And there was a young man that joined one of the scientists there he was 14 years old, and they did a lot of research collecting the birds that flew into the window, and most of them were male hummingbirds, because they're the ones that establish new territory. And so they treated the windows with dot pattern, like etched dots, so that when the birds are flying, they don't see the reflection of the trees and the sky in the window. It breaks it up. And so, having bird safe windows, and there's a lot of solutions, is really important.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I'm exploring right now because of all what's happening in Chicago and New York and all the death of these warblers. And I'm really fascinated. I have an interior design business, and also for clients and protecting their windows. And I think it's great that you just said that about the dot patterns on the windows. Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah. And it's very aesthetic as well.
I love that idea. I think all large windows need that. Yeah, that's great. Great information too.
The American Bird Conservancy, they have a AIA, American Institute of Architects training of bird safe buildings, and they have a
Mhm.
lot of information on their website.
Hmm.
And that's on the American Bird Conservancy?
Yeah, on their
Okay.
Have any of you heard
That's great.
any discussion about impacts of EMFs on birds?
No, what is that? Yeah.
All the electromagnetic frequencies that we're increasingly putting out, like 5G, and now some companies are talking about 10G and
Mm-mm.
No.
But I'm sure it's affecting them.
Mhm. Some people even speculate if putting those radio collars around, for instance, on the condors, if the radio collars themselves, because they emit different EMF frequencies, if those could have an impact on. There have been studies apparently on a variety of wild animals that show that animals who have been collared or tagged or whatever have a lower life expectancy. So it's kind of, I don't know, something I'm really interested in learning more about. So.
Okay, I'd just like to check in. People have any more questions?
Mm-mm.
Right. Well, I think we'll thank you all for participating and coming, and may you all go forward with new bird knowledge and creative projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
It was
Great.
really
Thank you.
fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for participating.
Short and sweet.
Thank you for the organizers too.
Mm,
Thank
mm,
you. Bye.
mm. Bye.